This is Zacherie Robichon, a Canadian professional racing driver. He's competed in legendary races across the planet, such as the 24 Hours of Le Mans and the Rolex 24 at Daytona.
Well, Zach, thank you for taking the time to stop in today to try our motion solutions, provide us with some feedback. But let's take a little bit of time and find out who is the man, the racer. So tell us first off, what made you want to become a race car driver and how did that happen?
Truthfully, how many little kids do you ask and they say, I want to be a race car driver? And to be able to actually say that now is almost surreal. I still very rarely ever introduce myself as that because I think it almost just sounds untrue. And for me, it was something like so many other kids that as a kid, it was a passion of mine. Mm-hmm. I actually grew up ski racing, and my mom was very, very against me getting anywhere near race cars. Because my dad raced a little bit when he was younger, and basically when my sister was born, he got out of racing, and I think my mom would have been happy that racing would have been out of our life at that point. But obviously, if there's some passion in the family, it stays, and I kind of grew up watching Formula One with my dad, and for his 40th birthday, instead of a midlife crisis sports car, he bought himself a go-kart. So once he went karting, obviously, I was 4 years old at the time, and I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. And basically, one thing led to another, and it wasn't until I was 13 years old that I actually got in a kart for the first time. So my mom was able to hold off long enough, I would say, but it kind of took off from there, and it just started off as something that I wanted to do for fun. It was never something that I saw myself pursuing a career in, because at the time, skiing was really what I was into, and I skied at a relatively high level until I was about 16, 17 years old. And eventually, I sort of stopped skiing. One thing leads to another when you're that age, especially in high-level sports. For one reason or another, you choose to step away from it. Mm-hmm. And I kind of kept racing as something that I just enjoyed doing. And I got lucky. Say what you will. I had the right opportunities. My family was very helpful. We did a little bit of car racing, and around 2013, we did one season in Formula Fords, which is a small formula car. Mm-hmm. And basically, at the time, my parents were like, this is it. After that, you're on your own. And I was going through university at the time, and I wasn't ready to give up on it. I wanted to keep racing. So I ended up working for a race team as a mechanic and as an engineer and back at the shop, basically to pay for my racing. And through my undergrad and then my master's degree, kind of kept doing that. And yeah, right place, right time. And then I found myself racing, in Porsche Cup. And that was thanks to the support from some local dealership groups, from Mark Motors here in Ottawa. Mm-hmm. Same sort of deal, right place, right time. I was coaching somebody, and his dad had a 911 Cup car. And he says, hey, do you want to drive my car? I'm like, well, of course I do. What a silly question. And as it turns out, the team that prepared his car were the same team that prepared the cars for the Mark Motors dealership. So I got introduced that way, and kind of a one-race deal at the beginning because we didn't have any funds to go racing, and they didn't have anybody, and they said, hey, you can do one race, but we really need X amount of dollars to do the season. And I said, well, we don't have it, but we don't have anybody else right now, so why don't you jump in the car? Yep. And my very first race weekend with them, we actually won. Ended up spending 3 years with them, basically from that moment. And then from there, we went into the professional ranks with FAF Motorsports. Yep. In the IMSA Championship in 2019. And then, now we're here. It's kind of taken off from there.
I think that was awesome to see your progression as well. As a fan of Canadian motorsports and Canadian drivers, seeing you graduate from Porsche Cup first off to FAF, and of any team to be able to have a lot of success with the Canadian team as well. I think that was awesome to get behind as a fan. And now you're with Harder Racing, right? So and kind of been traveling the world. So you've been doing a lot of stuff with WEC and IMSA. I think what you've just went through your December, February was insane. Only, I think, a handful of drivers can tell that story. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how your 2025 season has started so far?
Yeah, the crazy thing about racing is you basically never know what's going to happen next year. And I've been fortunate enough for one reason or another to continuously have these opportunities. And into 2025, the Heart of Racing, which is a team I started with last year, kind of, gave me this opportunity to do a little bit more this year with them and stay with one team in both the IMSA and WEC championship. So that's the North American and the World Championship. And basically, part of it was, hey, we also do a couple of other events. Would you be interested? And the one that stood out to me was the 12 Hours of Bathurst, because that is something that my whole life I've wanted to do. It is, for those who don't know, it is an absolutely insane race, insane track. It's definitely a bad idea when you actually think about what you do at that race. But part of that was to support in the 24 Hours of Dubai. So essentially, January 5th this year, I got on a flight to Dubai, did a 24-hour race in Dubai, flew home on the Monday, was home for about 36 hours, then went off to Daytona, where you have the Roar, which is the testing before the first race of the year. And then I had the 24 Hours of Daytona. That race was Saturday, Sunday. We finished third in that race. Monday morning, got on a flight to Australia. Did a 12-hour race in Australia, and then obviously flew home on the Monday. So in a span of 4 weeks, I was on 3 different continents and did 60 hours of racing. And that's more than a lot of people do in a lifetime. And I basically did it in 4 weeks. And I will say when I got home, I slept very, very well.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
I can definitely imagine. And I mean, quite the difference in events as well, from Dubai to Bathurst to Daytona and now Sebring, right? So, yeah, I mean, and some podiums to start off the season. I think that's super exciting. It looks like the team's doing very well. And I mean, on that subject, why don't you tell us a little bit more about the Heart of Racing?
Yeah, 100%. One thing to actually add to that last point is that the first 4 races I did this year were actually part of 4 different championships. Yeah. So just getting used to the different rules was something that, the engineer would say something. I'm like, what does that mean again? And in this championship, what do we do? And the Heart of Racing is a fantastic organization. And basically, it's a charity group that raises funds for the Seattle Children's Hospital. So it is a huge racing program. Very much tied to Aston Martin. Sometimes we drive other cars in different championships, but the heart and soul of the team is also with Aston Martin. And this year they're launching the Valkyrie program, which is the hypercar program. But on my side of the garage, we stick to the GT3 stuff, and it's something that has a lot of support from a few big names, big corporations that allow us to go racing, and try to give that message that anybody has the opportunity and everybody deserves the opportunity.
Awesome. Well, best of luck for the rest of the season. You guys, I think, are off to a good start, so hopefully that continues on, maybe for a championship.
That's the goal. For me, the full season championship I'll be doing is the World Endurance Championship. We started off in Qatar a few weeks ago. We finished 6th. Probably had an opportunity at a podium, but to get points in our first race, solid top 10, good place to start.
Awesome. So now let's shift over to kind of why we brought you here. So far, why don't you tell us a little bit of how you've used simulators, I guess, to prepare for some of your events?
Yeah. I don't shy away from saying traditionally I'm not a huge fan of simulators. We've had this conversation before.
We have.
Many times. And especially, I kind of definitely did not like motion simulators. I kind of just gave the impression that I was being shaken to bits for no reason at all.
Yep.
And so I've been big on the simulators simply for learning tracks. Yep. Because their biggest advantage is getting rid of that first session where you're trying to find your reference points, trying to figure out the little intricacies of the track. And I always felt as though a simulator was good for that, but I didn't necessarily feel as though there was more to it than that. And it was because maybe I'm old school, maybe I'm just hard-headed, but I always felt as though the realism just wasn't there for me.
Yep.
And that was something that maybe I struggled with, because a lot of things that I was told were meant to increase the realism, I couldn't translate it. Yep. And I would try it and try different settings, and I was like, you know what, honestly, it just distracts me from what's going on.
Yep.
And since we kind of started working a little bit together last year when you were introducing these new parts with the Vero Motion simulators, I thought it was, at first, I was very skeptical.
Yep.
But what immediately stood out to me was the amazing changes that we could make and the speed at which we were able to actually adapt to try and get that realism out of it.
Yep.
So many settings that we could play with, and within like 30 minutes, I think the first time we were on the 4-post actuator, I was like, this is actually pretty good.
Yep.
And I never actually thought going in that I would be saying that.
Yep.
So the fact that you've actually even convinced me to keep coming back, I think says a lot about the realism that we're able to get out of it.
Yep.
And then now with the different machines and the bigger actuator, and you got to remind me what the name of that one is again.
The Legend.
Yeah, the Legend. Again, first time I saw it, I was like, oh, I don't know about this. But I can say that the first time I jumped on it, and I had just spent like an hour on one of your other simulators that didn't have motion, within 3 laps, I was already quicker.
Yep.
And as somebody who, I will admit, I'm not that good on a simulator, maybe I don't have the reps that a lot of people do.
Yep.
That attachment to realism is what made me immediately more comfortable and able to go quicker.
Yep.
So that attachment is clearly something that works, because for somebody from my side who is not necessarily going from simulators to real cars, but backwards,
Yep.
If something's more realistic, it feels more natural to me. And that was kind of the clicking point for me. Like, okay, you know what? There is something here.
Yep. I mean, you've hit so many great points. I'm going to touch on a couple of them. So the first one was your belief in how this works. And I mean, I've spoken with your cousin, which just brought some clients over to us. And I was telling him, like, Zach actually likes this. He was like, no way. Like, he hates motion. And then he ended up having to talk to you afterwards to be like, yeah, no, you really did like it. So I think that was special. And I mean, I knew it. You had tried some of our other sims before that was using other motion or just static. And I knew where you were. And I knew that even for me, I've been building sims and I've been using sims to train drivers for such a long time. And I believed in it, like, for such a long time. And when I tried 4-post actuators from the main competitors right now that are on the market, first off, I thought they were too expensive. And when I got on, my expectation out of it for that price was set high. I wanted to feel what I'm feeling on our products, but I wasn't there. And that, I think, was disappointing. And I think it was even tough because I'm passionate about this, and seeing people get behind in companies, first off, pushing the solution on others as a true motion solution. I just felt like we were giving people a lot of a bad impression on what simulation could be. And then when we started to test these solutions, I think it was back in November, it was special. Like, for me to be able to get that and then getting your feedback on it. And we've kind of broken the mold with a lot of other real racers like yourself, even up to the IndyCar level, and just adapt to it the same way you have. And I think for us, that has been the best compliment. And now we're excited to really go public with this and offer it to everyone to be able to feel the real thing out of their helm. Because, you, by the sounds of your story, worked hard a lot to get to where you are, but a lot of luck was in place as well. A lot of drivers will never get that experience or the funding to be able to experience in real life. But now I think we're making it more approachable for them to be able to get this motion solution at their home sim and feel very close to what they'll get in real life.
100%. It doesn't, I don't forget how lucky I am to be in the position to do what I do.
Yep.
And to give that feeling to others is something that I only hope that somebody can get that sensation. And the closer we can get to it with this is something that I think is worthwhile to have people try it, because there is such a passion for motorsports. And unfortunately, it is a very cost prohibitive sport.
Yes.
And this is an opportunity to have people who are probably truthfully bigger race fans than me, to actually have the opportunity to kind of touch and feel something that is realistic.
Exactly. Well, awesome. Well, I think we've pretty much covered a lot. And I mean, I think hearing your story was amazing, and thank you for sharing it. Again, the feedback that you provided for us today is amazing. We look forward to continue to improve it, and we look forward to continuing having you on the sims and train on them as well. And best of luck for 2025 and ongoing years. So thank you.
Appreciate it, and you know where to find me.